Hey, this is René. Welcome back to another video on this channel. And today I want to talk about multi-currency trading because this was requested frequently in the comment section. And we will write an expert advisor together for this purpose of multi-currency trading. So what is multi-currency trading? Multi-currency trading pretty much means, at least for me, that you have an expert advisor or that your strategy is to trade multiple currencies. For example, Euro, US dollar and US dollar Japanese yen. And the interesting thing is that if you compare these two markets, like Euro, US dollar and US dollar Japanese yen, they really often run in different directions. And this is because they both trade or they both have the US dollar in their name, which means that they are dependent on the US dollar value pretty much. So plain chart. So it is really often you can see that if the Euro US dollar is rising, so the market is or the market price is increasing, the US dollar Japanese yen price is falling and vice versa. So these two currencies could be traded together. So you could say, for example, I want to buy the Euro US dollar and sell the US dollar Japanese yen. Or I want to sell the Euro US dollar and buy the US dollar Japanese yen. So yeah, you can make you can build trading strategies around this concept. And it doesn't only work with these two markets. You could also choose like one index and one currency and build some kind of hedging strategy. But on this channel, we do not talk about strategies too much, but mainly focus on the programming part. So what we want to program is the following. I will place objects in the chart. So we will have two buttons. So we will have one button or we will have buttons. I don't know how many buttons I will insert here later on, but maybe I can demonstrate this. So we will have, for example, two buttons. One button is to open a Euro US dollar and US dollar Japanese yen position. And the second one is to close both of these positions. And we will now build a program that does exactly this. So when you are programming in MetaTrader 5, you usually want to use the MetaQuartz language editor. You can find it if you click on Tools and then MetaQuartz language editor. This will open the MetaQuartz language editor. This is the last program that I worked on, but we will create a new expert advisor, of course. So in the upper left corner, you can click on New. Then you click on Next. You have to fill in a name, for example, multi-currency trader. Doesn't really matter what name you choose, but it should make sense to you, of course. Then you click on Next, Next, and Finish. And this will create a blank expert advisor. Let me remove the first lines and all these gray lines because they are just properties and comments and they do not affect the program at all. And I usually like to rearrange my brackets. So it should look something like this on your PC now. And also, if you are watching a programming tutorial, make sure to copy everything that I do. So every single line, because this is the only way that you really learn. I often see comments like, can you give me the source code? Or I made a mistake here, or my program doesn't do what your program does. This is because you did not copy every single line. And this is not how you learn programming. So if you really want to learn something, please do everything as I do it on my PC, and I guarantee you will become better at programming. This is like a 100% success formula. So first of all, we want to create two buttons. And we usually create the buttons when the program is attached to the chart. And what we see here is we have three functions. And these functions are in this violet tone. So they are system functions. So they are called, or at least these event handling system functions are called by the MetaTrader itself. So if we attach this multi-currency trader to any chart, it will call these three functions if a specific event triggers these functions. So for example, if we attach the program to a chart, the onInit function will automatically be executed by the MetaTrader 5. And then everything in between of these curly brackets here is executed. So we can add code to create buttons here in this onInit functions. And there are some predefined functions in the mql5 framework to create objects or buttons in the chart. And we can use the object create function for this. So you just write object create, like I do here with a capital O and a capital C. And then in these round brackets after the function name, we can provide several function parameters. So we can say in what specific chart we want to create an object. And we usually choose the chart ID 0 because this is the chart where the program is running. Then we have a object name. And this is important because every object, every rectangle, every button, every line in a chart has a unique name. And this name can be pretty much anything. So we can create variables for this button. For example, we could say, and make sure to put this outside of any of these functions. Whoops. So do not put this string inside of any function because we will use this variable that we create now in different functions. So it has to be a global variable. And the global variable is always declared outside of any function. So we write string, and this is the variable data type. And string usually means that it is a text format, pretty much, that this variable can hold. So we can say object name button 1 or button by, or let's say button 1, doesn't really matter how you name it, but it should make sense to you. And then we can set a default value. We can say, for example, button 1 or multi-currency trader button 1, like this. And then we end the line with a semicolon. So if we have a closer look, we declare this variable like this. First of all, we have the data type, which is string. And again, this is any text data, pretty much, in programming usually. Then we have the name of this variable. This could be object name button 1, or it could be Peter, or it could be Susan. But I mean, it makes sense to choose a name that is, that makes sense pretty much. And then we have this equal sign, which means that we want to initialize this variable already with a default value. And this is the value that we put inside of this variable. So right now, in this variable, object name button 1, this value is stored. And then we have this semicolon to end the line. And now we can use this variable here as a object name for this object that we want to create, right? So the next parameter is the object type, and this is of course object underscore button. You can choose any object types of this list. So if you write obj like this with capital letters and underscore, you will see a menu pretty much, or a list of suggestions for your buttons. So these are all the available button objects that you can create using MetaTrader 5 programming. And we choose this button object. Then we have the sub window, and this is only relevant if you have an indicator, for example, the RSI or something like this attached to a chart, or for example the MACD, because this indicator is displayed in a sub window. So if you want your button to be displayed in this MACD window, you will have to provide sub window 1 as a parameter for this function. But since we want to display the button in the main window, we choose sub window 0 here. Then we have the datetime value and a price value, and these are not necessary for buttons, so we just put 0 here. Then we will now create a button. So if we compile this program, so click on compile here, you should not see any errors now. If you do see any errors, please make sure that your program looks exactly like my program. And do not forget to put all of these semicolons and these quotation marks and everything. So if we compile this, we go back to the MetaTrader 5, and let me delete these two buttons here. And now I can go to the navigator, and if I click on Expert Advisors, I should find this multi-currency trader. So I can drag and drop it to any chart, click on OK, and we should see that there is a button object created in the upper left corner. We do not see it, and I think this is because the chart is not redrawn. Oh no, I think it is because this button doesn't have a size. So if we have a look at the object list, maybe we can find it here already. If we go all the way down. No, I think we do not see it because it does not have a size yet. So what we have to do is we have to say object set integer, and this function can be used to modify parameters or properties of a object in the chart. So we have to choose the chart ID again, which is 0, of course. Then we have the object name, and now we can use this variable again. And this is why it is always a good idea to use a variable, or if you define the name of this object. And now you can see for the next parameter of this object set integer function, it requests a object property that we want to change. So write object prop underscore, and you will see all of these suggestions here. And we can use x size, and this is the width of the object. So we can say, for example, 300. And now if we copy this exact line and change the y size, we can always also modify the height. And once we did this now, we will see the button in the upper left corner. And I think this is not correct. Okay, what we have to do is to make sure that the chart is always updated, we should add one more line, because I'm recording this on a Saturday, so the chart is not updated with every tick. So what we have to make is we have to say chart redraw, and then we compile this again, and now it should always automatically apply all the changes that we did to our button. So you can see we have this button, and this is a really big button, but we can see it in the upper left corner. And if we have a look at the object list now, we should see this button. I think it is at the very bottom. And you can see here we now have this button in the chart, and this is the button with the name MCT, multi-currency trader, BTN button 1. So you can see this is the button that we just created. And if we have a look at the parameters, we can see the width and the height is 300 and 100. And this is, kind of cool, I think. So the button is really huge, so maybe we can make it a little bit smaller, maybe 50 pixels height only. And yeah, this looks a little bit better. So we already learned that we can change properties using this object set integer function. We can change more properties. We can, for example, say x, I think it is distance, and I can say 100, and I can copy this line and say y distance, also 100. So if I compile this, you will see this button is now moved to the right and to the bottom by 100 pixels, starting in the upper left corner. And this is not really beautiful, so maybe we can make it like this. I just wanted a little bit outside of this corner. So you can always change the values, and it makes the chart look different automatically. So this is working. So what we can also change is, for example, object set string. We can change the text in this button. And since the text is not an integer value, but a string value, I already explained string values. String values are text values, and integer values are numbers pretty much. So these are integer values, but this is a text value or a string value. And now we want to change the text in the button, so we can choose the object set string function. We have 0 as a chart ID, the rest stays pretty much the same, and then we have the object property text. And here we can say buy euro US dollar, sell US dollar Japanese yen, for example. If we compile this, we should now see this text inside of this button, and there it is. So this seemed to work, and now we want to create more buttons. So we could copy this code, but a better idea is to simply write a function to create these objects. Because, again, I will show you two ways to do this. So I could copy this code. I could create another global variable, button2, for example. I could say that I want to create this button2 and I want to change the parameters of this button2, right? Now I could go ahead and change, for example, the y distance. I make it 150 and I say sell euro US dollar, buy US dollar Japanese yen. So what I did is I just copied this block, I pasted it here, and I exchanged the name of the object. So I will create another object, of course, right? So we have this other object here now. But this is a not really good solution because it makes the code look messy. Because if I want to create 10 buttons, I would have this block 10 times. A better idea is to take this code and put it in a custom function. So let me cut this code and let me go all the way to the bottom of my program here, outside of any function, and let me now create a function. So a function definition usually it starts with the return type. A function can return a value. If you call a function, it can return a value, but it doesn't have to. If you do not want or need a value to be returned, you can say void shall be the return type because it means the function does not return anything. Then you have to choose a name, and this name could be create button. And then you can add parameters in these round brackets, and then you have curly brackets for the body of the function. Inside of this body, I will now paste this code. I just cut the code and I paste it now here. So this function, what this function does is whenever this function is called, the body of the function is executed. So I could say here, or if I compile the program like this, 2 buttons are still there. This is because I do not delete them. But if I delete, let me delete the buttons. Let me remove the program and let me delete the buttons. So just select all, delete. So now all the buttons are gone. And I will take my program and put it on the chart. And make sure to realize that in this onInit function, the function that is called when a program is activated, we only create one button now, right? Only the button 1. So it should display only one button. And there it is, only one button. So let me do the same thing. Let me remove this. Let me have a look at the object list. Let me remove this button. And now I add one more line to my onInit function. And I say create button with empty parameters. And by adding this line, I now call this function. And whenever this function is called, again, all the programming code inside of the body of the function is executed. So if I compile the program again, if I run the program again, you will now see 2 buttons. This is why I want to create this I want to use this create button function to create several buttons. Now we have a problem because everything is hard-coded in this create button function, like the x distance, the y distance, the x size, the y size, and the text. This is why we can use parameters. So I can add some parameters here in this list of parameters in between of these round brackets. So I could say, for example, x distance, y distance, x size, x size, y size. I will explain this in a second, and text like this. So if I compile this, you will see this works, but it now says there's a wrong parameter count because I now declared several parameters for this function, which means whenever you call this function, all of these parameters have to become, or have to get a value, or you have to put a value for all of these parameters. And you can then use these parameters in the function body. So whenever you want to declare function parameters, you have to do it like this. You always go inside of these round brackets after the function name, and then you write the data type of this parameter variable, which is integer in this case, for example, for the x distance, right? It's an integer value. So so you write the data type and then a name for the variable. And then with a comma, you can add multiple parameters. So we have another integer variable or parameter, another integer parameter, another, and then finally a string parameter. You could add as many parameters as you want pretty much. You always have to put a comma in between two parameters, and then you have to add the data type and the name. And what we can do now is we can use all of these variables or parameters inside of the function body. So I could say here I want to choose x distance, here I want to choose y distance, here I want to choose x size, here I want to choose y size, and here I want to choose the value provided in the text variable. So this works, no problem. The only problem we have is that we will have to put some we have to add values for these parameters in our on init function where we call this create button function. So we can say x distance is 10, y distance is 100, x size is 300, y size is 50, and the text is sell euro US dollar buy US dollar Japanese yen, like this, right? So if we compile this, the error is gone, everything works fine, and we create this button and it works. So the great thing is we can now pretty much call this function as often as we like. So we can say, I want to create another button here with these values, buy euro US dollar, sell US dollar Japanese yen. And if you watch closely, you will see these are the exact same values that I chose here. So what I can do now is there's one thing I forgot. I will have to add another parameter here. Maybe at the beginning, a string parameter for the object name. And this object name will be used here to create the object and to change the parameters. So if I go here, I can say object name button 1 and I can say object name button 2 like this. And now I can remove this whole block and only choose these two lines or add these two lines to create these two buttons. And there's one more thing. When we want to remove the program from the chart, we should use the objects delete all function to remove all the objects from the chart. And there is a option to provide a prefix. So we can say all the objects that start with MCT shall be removed from the chart. So if we compile this, and do not forget to compile your program whenever you made a change, because this will apply the changes to your executable file. So if I now remove this program from the chart, you would see both of these objects are gone. So I can activate it again, both objects are there. I can remove it, both objects are gone. So this is really cool, right? So I could now choose, I can now copy this line. I maybe can create another object here, which is object name button3, and I can say MCT close, for example, close. Or close. I mean, doesn't really matter how I name it. So I can move this a little bit to the bottom, and the rest stays the same. But I want a text that says close traits. So like this. And there is a problem. I added a bracket there that should not be there. So now you can see I can create buttons as many as I want, and it's really easy because I can use this really cool function for every button that I want to create, right? So yeah, this is it pretty much. And what I want to add here is I want to add 2 input variables, because maybe I want to trade other objects and not only Euro, UDS, or US dollar and US dollar Japanese yen. So I can say input string, and this is another global variable pretty much, but it has this input modifier in front of it. So the rest is pretty much the same. We just have a string, which is the variable data type, and then we say symbol 1, and we say Euro, US dollar. So this is pretty much what we did here. We just declare a variable, right? But let me copy this line, and whoops. Let me copy this line and say symbol 2, US dollar Japanese yen, like this. If I compile this, you can see there's no error. And since these are input variables, we will see them if we double click this little head here. We can see them as inputs. This is what this input modifier does. And what we can do now is we can use these variables here. So we can say by, and then we say plus symbol 1, and then we say plus cell plus symbol 2, right? Like this. And make sure to do everything like I did it here. So you have to write this quotation mark here. So you say by, and then empty space, quotation mark, and then plus, because you can concatenate multiple text or string values using this plus sign. Then you add this symbol 1 variable, which is nothing else like another string value pretty much. And then you add plus, then the cell, again, quotation marks, blah, 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 plus symbol 2, like this. If you do everything like this, it should work. Now, let me copy this and add it here. And now I say cell symbol 1 plus by symbol 2. And this is really cool, because what happens now is, if I compile this, if I go back to my program, you can see it says buy Euro, US dollar, sell US dollar, Japanese yen. But if I change these values to DE 30 and US 30 or 40 or whatever, and if I click on OK, you can see these values automatically change. And this is like the beauty of programming and using input variables, because everything is like so easily changed. And I am now able to trade everything I want with this program pretty much, because I can just change the symbols in the input variable list. So what we have here is we have a program that does pretty much nothing. It just creates objects, but nothing else. So what we want to do now is we want to open positions if these objects or buttons are clicked, right? So what we have here is we have these functions, the onInit function, the onDinit function, and the onTick function. So let me give you a quick breakdown of these functions. So the onInit function is called whenever the program is activated in the chart, or when the time frame is changed, for example. The onDinit function is called whenever the program is deactivated, for example, when it is removed, or before the time frame is changed. Then the onDinit function is called. Then there is this onTick function, which is called whenever there is a tick, a price change in the chart. But we do not have the event handling function for button clicks yet. But there is a function for this purpose. So this function is called, wait, let me go here, on chart event. So I can just go below my onTick function here, and write on chart event like this. And then let me look in the reference here. So you can open the MetaTrader 5 mql5 reference. If you, the best way is to click inside of the name or word or function name or whatever you want to look up, and then press F1 on your keyboard. Then it will open the mql5 reference. If this trick doesn't work, you can also go to help and mql5 reference, and then you can just search for on chart event here in this index tab, for example. There you can see the signature. And what I can see here is I can take these 4 lines and I copy them as the parameter list for my function. And then I close the parameter list and I open and close the body of this function. So what I did here is I added this on chart event handling function to my source code. And there's one thing that is important. Whenever you do this, you will have to write everything exactly like this. So the name is on chart event, the return value is void, and then in these round brackets, you have exactly 4 parameters. And they always have to look like this. They have to be constant, so you cannot modify them in the body. And then you have the integer parameter ID, the long parameter, which is a reference. I will not explain this in this tutorial, but you have to add this little and sign. And it is the L parameter. Then you have a double variable, which is again a reference pretty much. And it's a D param and this string variable, which is S param. You can also always go here and copy this block, like the whole block, just copy it and paste it to your code, but make sure to remove this little closing round bracket because this is a error, a mistake in the documentation. And yeah, again, then you add this body for the function, which is in these curly brackets. And this on chart event function, it is called whenever something happens to your objects in the chart. For example, if I print the S parameter here, and if I compile the program, you can see everything works just fine. I now have this on chart event function in my program. And I have this print statement, which pretty much means that whenever the on chart event function is called, I print the S parameter, the string parameter, to the experts journal. You can find the experts journal in the MetaTrader 5 toolbox here. So experts is down here. So if I click clear, and if I click somewhere in the chart, you can see something happens here. There's no message because there is no S parameter somehow. But if I click a button, you can see there is an S parameter. So it always gives me the name of the button that I clicked, because the S parameter is filled for a button click with the name of the object that was clicked. So what I can do here is I can check if the S parameter is equal to object name button 1, like this. So what I did here is I used this if control structure, which is always indicated by this if word, which is then followed by a condition in round brackets. And my condition is this S parameter has to be, or it has to hold the value of this variable, right? So if the S parameter is the same value that is stored inside of this object name button 1 variable, then I want to print something. And this could be the first button was clicked, blah, 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 like this. So if I compile the program now, and if I click the first button, you can see it gives me the first button was clicked. If I click the second button, nothing happens. But if I if I add another piece of code here, I can concatenate different if statements using this else if structure. So directly after the body of the first if statement, I can choose to write else if and add another condition. So I can check if it's not the first button, I will check if it is the second button. And if it's not the second button, I will check if it is the third button, right? So let me copy this block and I can do it like this. I can say the first button or the second button or the third button was clicked. So if I compile the program again, I will now see the first button was clicked, the second button was clicked, the third button was clicked. So I now have a way to identify which of these buttons was clicked, right? And now I can open the positions or close the positions. And the best or easiest way in MetaTrader 5 to open and close positions is to use the ctrade class. So go all the way like to the top of your program and write this line. It is this hashtag, then include, then a smaller sign pretty much, then trade/trade.mqh and a greater sign, right? And this will include a file to your program. I will not go into detail here. This is goes into object-oriented programming. If you're interested in this topic, or if you want to learn everything about mql5 programming, you should check out the link below this video. You will find a link to a complete course where I teach everything and also explain things like this trade.mqh5. But for this tutorial, it's just important that we can now create object variables of type ctrade. This is only possible because I wrote the first line. So if I remove this line, if I try to compile, there's a problem because ctrade is not known. But if I add the line and compile, everything works just fine. So we now have a object variable which is named trade, and it is of type ctrade. So I can use this trade object here and say trade by, for example, because this ctrade class, it has a by function, and I can use this by function using this trade object variable. So I can say by, and I can now provide the lot size, and I like to make the lot size a input variable. For example, like this. So input, again, just means that the user can change this value. Then we have this data type, which is double. This is similar to integer. So we learned integer, or int, is any number. And a double variable is any number, but it can have a decimal point and values after the decimal point, or digits. And a integer value cannot have values, digits after the decimal point. So for the lot size or the volume, we have to use a double value because we could have a lot size like this. And this is no valid integer value. So we have to choose double for this, right? So we can now use this lots variable here to choose it as a first parameter for our by function. Then we have to provide the symbol. And here we can just choose the symbol 1 from our inputs variable list. And then we have to provide a price, a SL, and a TP, and a comment. And I mean, we can do this, but because there's this little equal sign and a default value, we do not have to do it. So we can just write trade by lots symbol 1 like this, and this will create a by function. And then we also add another line which says sell, of course. And here we want to sell the symbol 2. If we compile this, if we go back to our program, and if I hit these buttons, you can see there's a problem because there are two problems. The first problem is it is still Saturday, so I cannot trade euro-US dollar. The second problem is I wrote US dollar euro, which is not a valid symbol. So I will have to take care of this. I will have to say US dollar Japanese yen, for example, and I can say here euro US dollar, yeah, like this. So it will change the value here. And now we see both markets are closed, of course, because I can just not trade euro US dollar and US dollar Japanese yen here. But let's try this with some markets that we can trade. We can, for example, let me search for Bitcoin. Can I trade Ethereum? Yeah, I think. So we can trade some cryptocurrencies here just for demonstration purposes. So let me say Bitcoin US dollar and Ethereum US dollar, like this. If I click on OK, we should now see, if I click on buy Bitcoin US dollar, sell Ethereum US dollar, that we will get 2 positions here. So we bought Bitcoin, we sold Ethereum. And if I click on this button again, the same thing happens. And yeah, if I click on the second button, nothing happens. And if I click on the third button, there's also nothing happening. Also, if I click this button, it goes to this clicked state. And this is not really beautiful, so we should change this. So we can say, once the button is clicked and the positions are opened, we say object set integer, and then we say object button 1, object property state, and we can set the state to false, like this. So if I compile this, and if we click the button now again, you can see it always goes back to the unclicked state. Yeah, it only does this if I say chart withdraw. So if I click on compile again, if I click this, you can see it goes back to this unclicked state as soon as the positions are opened, right? And now I get a lot of positions here, and yeah. So we should make sure that we can close these positions. So let's go here to our third button, and we can add a loop here to loop over all the open positions. And a loop for this is for integer e is equal to positions total minus 1, e greater than 0, greater equals 0, I minus minus. So what this does is, this is another control structure. It is, so the first keyword is for, which means that this is a for loop. And a loop always has different iterations. So we start this loop, or we initialize it by creating an integer variable. And this integer variable, it will be named I. So this is the name of the variable. And it has the value of positions total minus 1. Positions total is a function which is part of the mql5 framework, and it returns the number of open positions. So if we have a look at this here, so we can see there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think these are like 12 or 14 positions. So position total would return 12 or 40. But we subtract 1 from this value, so we have 11 or 13 now stored inside of our I variable. And then this is only done once if the for loop is initialized. Then we check if I is greater or equal 0. Since we have a big value in this I variable now, this is true, right? So this is the main condition of the for loop. And whenever this is true, we go to the body of the for loop. And here we can print the value I, for example. And after every loop run, we subtract 1 from this I value. So this is the same as this, right? This is completely the same. You could write I is equal to I minus 1 or I minus minus. This is just a shorter form. And after we did this, we will check the condition again. And then if this condition is true, we will go to the body again. Then we subtract 1 again, then we go to this again, we go to the body again, until I is smaller than 0. So you should always make sure that this condition is at some point in the future false. And this is like a typical way of doing it. So you can see if I click the third button now, we should see something printed in the expert journal. So you can see closed trades. The third button was clicked. We have 14 open positions. So we start at 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, blah, 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 blah. So these are always the values that are stored in this I variable for every single loop run. So we can now use this I variable to get the position tickets of our open positions. So we can write unsigned long position ticket, and we can say position get ticket, and this is a system function, so we can use it right away, and this will give us the position ticket of a function at a specific index. And the index is I, because you can see we have 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, and these are the indices or indexes, I don't know how to pronounce it, for the open positions. So this is 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. So counting starts at 0 and then just increases. So, and this is why this formula always works. I could have 20 positions and it would still work because I used this position total -1 here. And yeah, now we can say print, for example, position ticket is at index I. Something like this. So if I compile this, this should work. And if you are wondering what this is unsigned long. This is another data type. It is similar to integer. So it can be any number without a decimal point. This is not a number, of course. So yeah. Long just means that the number can be even bigger. So for integer values, I mean, this would probably be too big for an integer variable, but it might fit into a unsigned long variable. And since position tickets can be really big in MetaTrader 5, we choose a unsigned long variable for this. So I could also choose a long variable, but unsigned long means that these values can only be positive inside of this variable. And this makes sense because position tickets can never be negative. So if I run the program again now, or if I click the third button again now, you can see I get the position tickets for all of my positions, right? So if we compare these position tickets here with the tickets that we have here in the expert journal, you can see at index 13, for example, this position ticket with 499 is at the end. And this is 474, the last 3 digits of this ticket, and this is at position or at index 0, right? So we now selected, or we have the position ticket for all of these positions. So what we can do now is we can select positions using these tickets. And this is another function, which is a system function. It just selects a position. So we check if this position is still there and if we are able to select it. This should work. And then we can now use position get functions. And there is a position get double, position get integer, and a position get string function. And these functions can be used to get parameters or properties of the currently selected function. So I could say, for example, string position symbol is equal to position get string, like this. And then as a parameter, I have to say I want the position symbol. So this function will now return the position symbol. And now I check if position symbol is equal to symbol 1, or if position symbol is equal to symbol 2, I want to close this position. So I can say if trade position close, then I provide the position ticket, which I have in this position ticket variable here. So if I was able to close this position, I can add a print statement here. The position number, position ticket was closed, like this. So if I compile this, and if I now click the button here, we should see that all positions are closed. Yeah, because we just run through all the open positions using this for loop, and then we always check if the position symbol is one of these symbols that our program is managing, and if we found the symbol, we then close it. So as simple like it is. And yeah, after we did all this, we should reset the button state so it doesn't look ugly like here. So we can say object set integer, object name button 3, object prop state false. Now the only thing we have to do is we have to add code to the second button click. So let me just copy this, print it here, and then we just have to say we want to buy symbol 2, sell symbol 1, and we want to reset symbol button 2. So if I compile the program again, always make sure to compile your program. And if I, for example, want to sell Bitcoin, I can click here and buy Ethereum. So we buy Ethereum, we sell Bitcoin, and I can close it. And I can buy Bitcoin, sell Ethereum. Yeah, I mean, I can do this as often as I want. And this always works. And if I mean, what other cryptocurrencies can I trade here? I'm not sure. Let me look this up. Crypto. I mean, I'm not that much into crypto, but maybe Cardano, I heard about this, ADA USD. ADA USD. So we should be able to trade this on a weekend. I hope so, at least. Whoops, this was not what I wanted. So one-click trading. No, market is closed, so we cannot trade this on a weekend. So let me find a cryptocurrency that we can trade. Crypto. Yeah, maybe another Bitcoin thing here. Chart window. So now you can see we have another symbol here, and this is BCH-USD. So if I if I open Bitcoin and Ethereum now, and if I close the trades, you can see it only closes the positions with Bitcoin and Ethereum. And this Bitcoin Cash position here, it stays alive because we checked the symbol in our for loop, right? So yeah, this is pretty much how you can trade, or how you can build a multi-currency trading bot. And let me go through the code one more time and explain the important things. So it is important, or it makes sense to create several input variables. So the user of the program is then able to change the symbols that he wants to trade. Then we create 3 global variables that we use to keep track of the objects that we want to create. So we just put the button names inside of these variables, so we can use these variables whenever we want to work with the buttons. And the benefit is we do not have to change all of these object name, blah, 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 in the code. If we want to change the name of the objects, we can just do it here. And it will change everything in the code, of course, because we are using this variable anyways. Then we have this ctrade object variable that you can only use if you add this line. This will help us to open and close positions. And then in the onInit function, we just create some buttons. We do this by using the function, this function that we created for this purpose. So here we create a button and we change some of the parameters of this button. And make sure to add all the things that you need in your function body as a parameter for the function. And then, yeah, we redraw the chart. This will help you if you are programming on the weekends. And then on the deinit function, again, this function is called whenever the program is deinitialized or removed from the chart. We delete all the objects or the buttons that we created, because all of these buttons have the prefix MCT in their name. Then the onTick function, we did not use this. We could even erase it from our program. And then we have this onChartEvent function. You can copy this from the documentation, but make sure to remove this closing bracket here, because this is a bug, an error, a mistake in the documentation. And then in this onChart event function, we can check if one of our buttons was clicked. We do it here. If the button was clicked, we have a print statement. Then we open positions for the first two buttons. So we either buy the first or second symbol and sell the first or second symbol. Then we reset the button state so it looks smooth and clean in the chart, and then we redraw the chart. So this is not really complex, but a little bit more complex is the third button click, because here we have a loop. This is a classical for loop. So we loop through all the open positions, and you can always do it like this. So this is a piece of code that you can copy to any program you like. It will always work, because it will always loop through all the open positions. Then we check what the position symbol is, like the symbol of the currently selected position, and we check if this is a symbol that we want to trade with this expert advisor, because in this case we will then trade this position. And if the position closing worked, we have another print statement here, so we always know what our program does. Then we reset the button, and this is pretty much the whole program. So this is again not really a complex program. You can see everything here. These are roughly 70 lines of code, so it's not complex at all. And I hope that it helps you to learn something about multi-currency trading. And this is of course only an example. So you can always choose these mechanisms for any other program. So multi-currency trading is not complex at all. In MetaTrader 5, you will just have to provide a different symbol for your buy or sell position opening, and this is pretty much multi-currency trading already. So I hope you were able to take away some knowledge from this tutorial. Let me know in the comment section what you think about this, and if you were able to learn something. And then there's nothing more to say but goodbye, and we will see each other in the next programming tutorial or video on this channel. See you then, good trades, bye bye.